day and welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Thanks so much for clicking. To my returning subscribers, thank you so much for continuous love and support. I truly appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Sit back, get comfortable, and please feel at home. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody that you've known for a very long time, but when you sit down, it's like it flows, everything goes so smoothly because you know the person inside and out? Well, today's guest is somebody that fits that description perfectly. You know me, I love sharing stories and I love to hear other people's stories because it's an opportunity for us all to learn and grow from one another. Today's guest is my good friend, Kelly Macdonald. Now, I've known Kelly since 2015 when our paths crossed with some fun activities that Kelly will share with us. But ever since then, not only have we worked professionally together, but also collaboratively as friends. Yes, many activities, conversations, we've delved in, and we got to know each other very well. And it's my pleasure to welcome Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Melanie, thank you for inviting me to come on, and hi to everybody. Thank you for your time. I'm a broadcaster, and I've had the privilege, really, Melanie, as I think I've talked to you about numerous times, of being that guy to live out the dream. As a kid, I always was fascinated by radio. I remember getting interested through sports broadcasts, then wanting to go to all the radio stations in my home community of London, Ontario, which jumped me into playing around a lot with it, making when I was in the blind school in Brantford, Ontario. I have retinitis pigmentosa, a genetic eye disease. And at the point that I'm at in my life now, I really don't have a lot of usable vision. Before, most of my vision was mainly for mobility. It was helpful. Always been colorblind, so it's not like I could stand at a light and tell you the color of the light. Even if I could see a change of some kind, I was following the traffic. So I even did a little radio station at the blind school. I finally went to broadcast college in my 20s and always dreamed of really just being that guy on air, maybe in a midday shift, maybe in an evening to start with, maybe even overnight. Uh-oh, somebody took all those overnight shifts away on us. Anyone knowing broadcasting or interested in radio probably gets that, Melanie. I had the privilege of meeting a lot of people. I would say some people that, even at the time were mentors. And when I went to college, finished up, talked to a lot of program directors, and finally landed work with Accessible Media Inc. at the time, National Broadcast Reading Service, as a studio producer. What'd you do then, Kelly? What's a studio producer, you may ask? Well, at that time at AMI, it was sitting back and recording volunteer readers. For our friends in the United States and other parts of the world, you probably know reading services. And the reading services really was what we were, but we were a national reading service for Canada, bringing content to people in show form. Well, I did that for a few years. Then I became a coordinator and had my own volunteers because we were volunteer driven, working under me to provide that content. And finally, I got asked when a new regime came in to run the company. I got asked if I was interested in doing TV stuff, as we had applied for a license. I had the privilege of being a part of that application committee that went and addressed the CRTC asking for the license. One of the highlights, and one that I know that many of my classmates who went to broadcast school have not had that opportunity. So I feel very privileged to have stood in that position. But at the end of the day, I was asked, Kelly, would you be our first TV reporter? Very much an honor. However, I went to school for radio, not TV. So I got some experience playing around, doing it, the privilege of meeting people who would watch our content once we got the license and set up studios and cameras in different bureaus. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of learning, a lot of hard work, and a lot of not wanting to hear my own stuff. So from that, I got myself a TV show called Blindsided. I also got credit for founding another show where we would go to conferences, accessibility conferences, because we were very aware in the concept that people across Canada were not able to get to these conferences. So came up with an idea to send a crew in and get components of that for those who may be tired of hearing, well, this conference is in Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, but nowhere near where they were. So that was a privilege too, to bring that stuff to people, but it was a hands-off for me to not be involved that way. Uh, I think the other thing that with the TV series Blindsided, where I got a chance to go out, do different things, experience stuff, have a TV series for 3 years, again, another very privileged thing, was to start what finally would circle my journey of wanting to be in radio, an audio program put together as a radio show for AMI Audio in 2016. And that's really where I cut my teeth on journalism in the sense of being a talk show host. And finally, fast forward that to our show, Kelly and Ramya, my co host, and I. The show was moved over to simulcast on AMI TV and AMI Audio. So that's kind of the history. Oh, one thing I left off. How did I meet you, Melanie?
Ah, yes. I was just so entranced in your story, the journey that you went through. Well, in 2015, you came to interview me for one of these shows on AMI TV, and we were talking about Connect for Life and the broadcast training program that I ran. And it was great because I remember your vibe, your energy was just through the roof. And I was like, I really like this guy. I can connect with him. We had fun. We laughed. You're really great at, making me feel at ease when I was on air. And it was just so naturally. Then you loved what we were doing with broadcasting, and you became one of our biggest supporters, and you became a mentor for many of our clients. And you still are to this day very involved in the broadcast training program with us, and I can't thank you enough for that. It's amazing to see your success, but I have some questions, Kelly. Come on, you know
Always
me.
questions, questions, questions.
Always.
All right. Well, usually it's the other way around, and I'm asking the question, so it's always privileged to get put in this position. And I do want to add, before you get into your questions,
Yes.
one of the highlights that day, as we came with AMI to do an AMI This Week story, and I think people might be able to find that on the AMI app if they want to go take a look. Melanie, it was meeting students, meeting you guys, and feeling the vibe you gave me, because one of the things, and I know we'll get into this, um, for me, I said I wanted to do broadcasting since I was a child. It was always great. And I think most people who have a hobby or an interest, when you run into someone else with the same, you feel so, hey, excited. You want to bend their ear, or have them tell you things that maybe you didn't know, or just basically talk about it. And that's what I always found when I'd go out, cover stories. It was always something interesting to hear. But to cover story with people who want to be aspiring broadcasters, and as we see, I talk a lot, so there I got to talk a lot and listen a lot to everybody, and feel the connection right off the bat with you guys, because everybody was there for the same reason.
Yes, and it's a great thing. And just so that our audience knows, that an accessible voice in broadcasting is the course I created back in 2015 to help individuals with disabilities access the basics to radio broadcasting. And it evolved, and we included podcasting, and it's the first of its kind in Canada. And we've had great support from yourself, AMI, and CBC, which has helped it grow. But really, truly, it's a great opportunity for these individuals to come in, learn the basics, to see if they like radio broadcasting, if it's something they want to delve into, start their own podcast, whatever it may look at. And Kelly, I can tell you, I have had students come back and say, thank you so much for the connections to
Mm.
AMI staff, because you guys have come in as guest speakers, because really, truly, you guys keep it real for them. You tell them the barriers and the challenges for people with disabilities in the sector of broadcasting. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So I know you're a man who is resilient, you're determined, and you don't let anything get in your way. But what was the biggest challenge, whether during your schooling, you first looking for a job in broadcasting?
Schooling's a hard one because so much has changed in the way of software. When I went to school, we were phasing over. They were going from analog to digital. So we still, in analog, how do you do this? It's a more tactile. Okay, we can get around some of that. But we know in the industry, that's not the way it's going to be in time. And again, at a broadcast institute like Fanshawe College, where I went, they had the best equipment. They had probably better stuff right off the bat than we'd ever experienced at any of our first jobs in radio. Uh, I think for me, in second year, I first really realized how challenging production work would be. It wasn't accessible using Pro Tools and Saw back then. But not long after I left school, and I actually, to pass that course, had to do an adapted course for it. I did a project and research because my school wanted me to look into, hey, this is a deficit here for people with a sight challenge. So I did a research project on that for them, and that's how I actually legitimately passed production. And it was interesting because I also said, well, it's not like I'm going to leave here and go out and get a job producing. No way. And of course, 5 years later, I'm recording people in a studio using accessible software and producing. So it showed how quickly things can change and taught me that lesson that, yeah, you never know. I think the real hard thing at the time for me to accept was the running around talking to different people in an industry that doesn't have a lot of jobs, even back then, and also dealing with the fact that there were questions people wanted to ask. Probably thought, I better not. That's not an appropriate question. Gosh knows what they could have been. And when I say that, I don't mean to be flippant or suggest that we're going to ask some rude remark, but probably something they felt, I should know the answer to this. This is probably a dumb question. And I've been asked since then, would you prefer those people to have asked those questions? Hands down. I
Yes.
would love them to, Melanie, for that reason of they may feel a little silly when they get the answer, but that could be the difference of me getting the job or not. If somebody sort of does the whole, well, Kelly, I don't think I have any more, yeah, no more questions. And you want to ask something, but you're not for some reason. And that could be the question that could just push them to the side of giving you the job as opposed to, I don't want to go down that road. Next, and bringing someone else in. That was a tough thing. Chasing people, asking questions, getting the, hi, nice to hear from you, Kelly. Hey, no work here yet for you. That's something, and you have to push your way through it. And I know a lot of people with disabilities, we try to figure out when to disclose.
Mm.
And I had a variety of it. It all depended on how it felt, if it came up, and a lot of time it didn't. If I needed help, there was no way I was going to wander in there and crash around and make even more of a spectacle of myself being blind. I had to just accept I may need to ask, can someone meet me at the door? I'm vision impaired, or whatever they understood. But I think giving up on the on-air dream when I started working at AMI and felt so privileged to have a job, full-time job, working. And once I got over I'm doing a job to support the blind community, because I think at one point I wanted to be that person that got into commercial radio to make it easier for others to get in my position. That's what I told myself, of course. And, instead of figuring, I'm going to work for the blind broadcaster. Well, the blind broadcaster has not only paid bills, paid rent, but brought me a lot of experiences that my sighted peers in a minute who would have grabbed up the job in a minute, would have had no qualms about doing so in a minute, would have also in a minute killed for. So I've been humbled in those ways. They've taught me lessons, but adjusting to accepting, hey, I'm not going to be on air. That was one of the harder things. And we see where I am now, and it may have taken a long roundabout route, but I've got there. So Melanie, I think that's more than the one you wanted, but there's a
That's
few.
great. And I've got some thoughts came to my mind. So I remember in 2014 when I was first starting Connect for Life and Voices for Ability Radio and dreaming of an accessible voice in broadcasting, I was doing my research and I was contacting different people to find it because, of course, you know me, I didn't have a background in radio broadcasting. I was an
Right.
educator. So I didn't know much about anything. And I remember having a conversation with David Onley
Oh,
because he was
yes.
one of the first broadcasters with disabilities that was actually on air and talking about having a disability. And he took the time and sat down and I told him my vision. And he said, Melanie, he goes, you need to connect with Accessible Media Inc.
Mm.
And you need
Yeah.
to do your research. You need to reach out to the colleges and universities. So I did just that. And of course, you know, the relationship with AMI has been amazing since then. Big supporters helped guide me through what needed to happen, what I should be trying for. But when I reached out to the colleges and universities, I said, the ones that had radio broadcasting programs, I said, do you have people with disabilities in your class? No. Well, why is that? Well, because we don't have the time to help them. We don't have the equipment that's accessible. And to me, I was surprised at
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
but then as I dug deeper, there was only 2% of people in the broadcasting field with disabilities. 2%, Kelly, that's ridiculous.
It's a
And
scary number. And Melanie, I'll tell you, when I first ever went, when I was in high school and I went to speak to the coordinator for Fanshawe, Unfortunately, at that point, his viewpoint was, well, but radio's, as much as it's an auditory medium, it's very visual.
Mm. So how did you overcome those biases and barriers, Kelly? Because obviously you're not only advocating for yourself, but as you mentioned, you wanted to be that person to go in and lay the foundation for other individuals to have their start. Because you're
Um,
really a trailblazer.
Well, again, I had other mentors too. Cliffy Lormer, who's in Toronto, was somebody who I would learn worked in southwestern Ontario because his name always came up. And then I had the opportunity to meet Cliff and talk a lot of radio. And I also found a few others. Bernie, a guy I used to talk to in Minnesota a lot about it before I had work, was another great mentor. And since then, I've found others, and some that are not blind, like these fellas, others who are just in the industry telling me how to do stuff. I have a wonderful relationship with former Blue Jays broadcaster Jerry Howarth, and Jerry's always been very good to help me out as that mentor. I think what really was the challenge was, as much as you were hearing, no, I don't have anything for you, then once you got past that, I could just talk radio with these people.
Mhm.
So it kept me going on what they're doing, what's happening in their community, understanding. And if that was the way I was living out being on air vicariously through these program directors, people, it really seemed to help me with not giving up the dream. The being on air dream give up was more so I could function, so I could work. And what I did there is I had volunteers that I sort of lived through and encouraged and mentored the best I could, but very aware of the fact that, hey, I went to college for on air. I took it as a major, but I did not have the practical experience being on air. When I did TV, which is funny enough, never took a TV course, I got far more experience being an on air reporter than I did an on-air broadcaster for an audio or TV show, talk show. So I think, Melanie, it's finding those things that allow you to keep going. When I heard that it's a visual medium, left high school, took a year off, took a course at Fanshawe that had nothing to do with broadcasting, considered moving my career to social work. Finally didn't do that, took some odd jobs that I worked at until I could actually get accepted at Fanshawe. But as you said about the numbers being very low, people get tired of running, chasing, trying to get something. And the key thing with any course, not just radio, I have learned as a disabled person, I have to do the homework you were talking about, the studying, the research, because I have to learn about the course so I can learn how to teach the teachers how to teach me.
Yes, and this is the one thing I love is the fact that I have the lived experience of having a disability and being able also the background of teaching individuals with
Right.
disabilities. I was able to accommodate the curriculum to meet the needs of our clients. Now, you did something really incredible at AMI when you started with Kelly and Company way back. You took on some contributors. You also had some backup co-hosts. Can you talk a little bit about why that was designed, whether it was your idea, AMI's, both collaborating, and what was that experience like? And tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
So when we put the show together, got word from high above that the show was to entertain, educate, but the priority was hitting health, lifestyle subjects, and certainly accessibility. And then with the part of entertainment, we as hosts could entertain, trying to be funny and keeping the show light. We wanted it to be like that conversation everybody felt a part of. One of the things that so anyway, we chased down contributors who obviously could relate to these subjects, but from a bit of an accessibility angle, and that we'd have positive portrayal on the air, persons with disabilities where we could. Then the idea came up that some of these contributors were knowing the show so well, so a part of it. So we started to go through our roster saying who would make a good backup co-host for one of us is sick, takes vacation time. We wanted to be able to do that. And that even fast forwarded to where we could both be off and have the confidence of backup co-hosts. We presented this, didn't really have a budget to teach the people, asked them if they were willing, the people we had kind of selected, went to each of them and asked them, would you be interested in? And they volunteered time to take the training. We had none of us had ever done this kind of training before. It wasn't our experience. We did the best we could. We think we did darn well at coming out with three, and two of which have taken the Connect for Life course, one before, one while she was a backup co-host and felt she needed more. So she had joined that roster. Being interested, being in love with broadcasting. These people liked what they had the opportunity to do. And then the budget was found to make sure these folks would be compensated. So we created jobs that way, and experience that's hard to get, because you will sit on the side and then, hey, by the way, I'm taking a week off in 3 weeks, be ready. And then you got to jump into play. You've got to know the show, and not an easy show to do. With doing 6 interviews a day that we pretty well do every day on the show, within the context of the 2 hours. So I think, Melanie, we had to shout out success when it came to working with these people, and you felt good as they broadened and as you could go off and not worry about it, because these guys had our backs.
And I think this is so important. And the fact that we are giving opportunities to other individuals with disabilities to really get that experience, not only for their resume, but that build that confidence, that I love the most about what AMI and yourself and your team has done. And not only that, you also provide opportunities for my graduates to come and job shadow. And for that, it's what a wonderful experience that not many people get, that hands-on experience. So thank you for that. Now
They
you,
have job shadowed and have been contributors.
yes.
Currently, we have one of them that's a contributor, one of them that's one of the backup co-hosts. And it's been amazing when we've had students during the course be either able to, as you say, shadow, but even come in and do presentations for us. And we've tried that a couple of times, and that too was really a rewarding and successful moment.
And, and it's just a wonderful how collaboration works.
Yeah.
So now, for a lot of our audience, they're not individuals with disabilities. So I wanted to just ask you a few questions, because both you and I have advocated for years for equality, for inclusion, and really, truly, it's a lifelong journey for us.
Yeah.
What would you like people to know? I know you touched a little bit about don't be afraid to ask the questions, because you'd rather people ask than assume. But what else is it that we could share?
Well, I really hope, and I understand that right now AMI has a tremendous apprenticeship program, which is something that I've advocated for. I've advocated for abilities for people to come and just volunteer with the company. And this went back, 15, 16 years ago, that I was saying I had people approaching me and asking. Getting that experience in some form, whether you're a volunteer or an apprenticeship, is key. It really is. And AMI is really, with the pandemic, this is one of the things that's left us, been given the chance to think about, how do we allow someone not in Toronto, not in Vancouver, not near one of our offices, to participate. And a lot of really great things. So I have to say a plug out there. Check it out. You can go to ami.ca and look for that information on the apprenticeship program. That is important. Speaking up is important. Asking your questions, being engaging, smiling. It isn't our job to be an ambassador for every person with a disability out there, or every person even with the same disability we have. You don't have to be that, because not a lot of us are that person who, yes, this is what I do. This is the equipment I need. Here's some pamphlets here. Take them. There, one for everybody. I've got enough. That's not necessarily what we are all created to do.
Hmm.
You're forced into doing it, and a lot of time, for a lot of us, at a young age. You have to take a little bit of a hand in that, whether you want to or not. But we do have to understand that's not what all of us do. You, when asked to be a mentor, it's wonderful when you can lead by example, instead of having to get in someone's ear constantly and give them the speech, or what you consider the speech is, which may or may not be prudent to what they need at the time. It may not be the sauce at the moment that they're looking for or needing to work with. So I've always found it really helpful to lead by example, to try to have fun, to let people see that side of you, but also be true to yourself and to the people around you. You don't always have to be having a great day, but when you are going to be an ambassador, you are going to be asked things that you think, like, I answered this before to the last person that came in here in your position. But we have to think about what drives things forward, what helps somebody understand, because in the long run, it is going to help us. And you may not be asked to be that ambassador, but I can tell you how great I've felt by the progress AMI has made. And one particular area that I sometimes think even my coworkers, it's lost on. When someone comes up and says, hey, you do TV. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, great for the ego. Well, that's a Kelly thing. They notice Kelly on TV. But what they also notice is that I'm a broadcaster. How do I know that? Because I'm not in their head. When the second question isn't, my goodness, you make me feel so inspired because I don't know how a blind person could get up in the morning, brush his teeth, eat his breakfast, probably the other way around, put his shoes on and go out every day and do this job. Oh my goodness. Their second question generally is, I saw you flying through the air in one of those indoor skydiving things. Wasn't that scary, man? Like, I wouldn't do it because and whatever their reasons are. But the question is the same question, funny enough. Second question they would ask any other broadcaster. And that was the stage set by people like David Onley, who
Mhm.
is a tremendous person, as you said, who always makes time and will talk to you. But it's that interest, which tells me people watch AMI and they've become used to disability faces.
And
This is not a shock. It's not like the Maytag man. Oh my goodness, you only should see him in our commercials. These folks are seeing us coming up and asking the real question.
Mhm.
The blindness stuff, yeah, yeah, okay, I get that. He's got an eye condition. Okay, hey, how did you do this? And one could, I guess, be skeptical and say, yeah, but deep down, it's different because you're blind and doing that. That's what he's really wondering. Yeah, well, maybe, but in most cases, I find they're curious and they're relating it back to how scared they would be to do that, not to be blind and do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so Melanie, that for me is one of those things that tells me we're getting somewhere, whether it's and some people will say, well, you have other programming that's not necessarily disability related, and we are changing what we do at AMI and the content that people will see out there starting particularly this upcoming season. But it's the fact that while they're watching, they see content created and starring those with disabilities. So the normacy level becomes, oh yeah, not noticed, not calling their aunt into the room and saying, hey, look, auntie, there's a blind man on TV. They've been there, got the t-shirt. It's not a surprise to them, and it hasn't been for a long time.
And that's exactly it. And I love it because, again, even on YouTube streets, there's many
Oh,
YouTubers that are blind. You know, one of our favorites, Molly Burke, she's huge on the YT streets, and she just rocks it. And it's nothing, people don't look at the blindness or the disability anymore. And that's the way it should be. That's what we've been thriving and striving for so many years. And I think we're that much closer.
we are. And that's what's going to get people jobs, because really the reality is, and I kind of chuckle because, I've had people say, so how would AMI feel if CTV came to you? All right, let's say CBC, because I'd like to keep the job for more than 2 years. But if one of the broadcasters came to you and said, hey, we'd like to hire you and bring you on, wouldn't that annoy AMI? They're losing one of their hosts, blah. I said the person that would scream the loudest about that would be David Arrington, the president and
Mhm.
CEO, because he has spoken very publicly, very openly, that is for him one of the goals, what he would love to see, and knows we have achieved it now, when people at AMI are being given just as many opportunities or an opportunity to work at another broadcaster legitimately because they have earned it. They have demonstrated the ability, and the industry is not letting, oh, but he's blind. Better not bring him in here. Right, right. Let's move on.
Exactly. Now, you did touch really quickly, lightly on this. You've done some crazy things, Kelly, on TV. Really crazy. Like, well, how do you get the courage to do this? And share some of those examples.
I don't get the courage sometimes. I'm going to tell you, I had to do something where I had a police training dog. You know, the dogs that chase you down if you're an escaped prisoner, and they send them into the woods. You see it on TV and you know that they send the dogs out. Well, I had to let one clamp onto my arm. And they were showing me how they do it with a piece of, really, I mean, I want to say wood, but it's more than wood, a sleeve that slid over my arm and had a spot for the dog to chomp onto. And that's how they trained. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not exactly Mr. Animal. So we did a few things with animals where I had to feed animals or be in very close proximity. So that was a challenge for me. So the dog, going back to this piece, had to come up and, when given the command, and clamp onto my arm. So standing there waiting for this dog, not knowing he's coming, because there's no way I was going to move around and have a chance that he might miss. And he grabbed on and he's yanking and, I got you, I got you. And I told them, you guys better do this in one shot because you don't get a second. So I've had the opportunity to do that. The indoor flying I mentioned, I recall it was one of the first episodes we did, one of the first experiences. And I remember laying on the floor inside the tube where you're doing this, and they said, "You ready?" Yeah. The dynamo turns over, or whatever you want to call it, and I start hearing this loud noise as the breeze starts blowing. That's going to elevate me up, 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 and I, for some reason, started to, hey, wait, 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 because it dawned on me, how am I going to breathe in here? And I realized, they said, "Oh, what's the problem?" "Oh, nothing." As it dawned on me that they're lifting you with air. There's plenty of oxygen, more than you could ever want. Um, there's so many things, and not all of them, some of them were just challenges. One of the silliest challenges for me, and I hated doing stories on this, was trying to teach me how to play an instrument. So I worked with Josh Traeger of the Sam Roberts Band, and
Mhm.
he was trying to get me to be able to, I could do a couple of things, tap tap tap, but when I had to do a third item, tap tap tap, boom, tap tap tap, boom, I struggled. And one of the things I had to accept, and really, because of course people are watching, ha ha ha, he can't do that, that's the thing you think the most about,
Mhm.
and that's okay. They're laughing at that. And I had to come to grips doing the TV show that it's okay not to be able to do everything. It's lousy TV if you can do everything they put the challenge to you, because then you might as well just pick a list of things you can do. The idea of the show was for me not to be perfect. However, I really got frustrated when I was really good at something or had good luck at doing something, and they said, "No, no, no, no one's going to believe that. That's not real. We've got to make them make a couple of mistakes here." So, but I was very privileged with the show for 3 years. Unfortunately, we canceled the show, but a lot of it was indecisive. And you can find it through Breakthrough Entertainment if you want to take a look at it. They've got our seasons 1 and 2 up there. Look for Blindsided with Kelly Macdonald. But our season 1 AMI owned, and we learned a little bit of a lesson as we were phasing over working with production companies. So unfortunately, it's a show that AMI no longer can show. Our season 1 is the only property we hold, so it's been removed. But it was a time where I got to learn a lot. The company learned a lot about doing our own productions. We really dived into our integrated video description, which means putting the description within it, and people who know about the third voice that you might hear in a scene, telling you what's going on for those with low vision or no vision. We build it right into the programming at AMI, because you know what? The production companies, the broadcasters themselves now build in that third voice where they need it. So that's some of the experiences, Mel.
And that's incredible. And again, I know you're an adventurous guy normally. So in your spare time, you do a lot of fun activities. Can you just talk a little bit about what you've been up to this summer?
Well, I will. I have kind of stepped away from theater. I ran a theater troupe, and I guess still kind of do, but we're very dormant, for 10 years, and really had a lot of fun doing shows. We worked ourselves up to doing about 3 productions a year, and it was really rewarding, and a lot of watching people experience it. Those who were low vision, working with sighted people, doing shows, that was our mandate. But it was tremendous to watch family members greet their loved one after seeing them perform. That was rewarding, to watch those family members cry, saying, "I never thought you could do, you were so good." It was the most amazing feeling that touched you. Don't do too much of that stuff now, and may get back into it. But of late, I've picked up kayaking. There's a wonderful group out here, Abilities in Motion, in the London area, that I started kayaking with last year. And these folks know what they're doing. They take us out on the lake, give us that experience, and they judge it based on what your needs are. And they're always open to the challenge. So I suggest people try us out. Come on out, and if it's something you're interested in, we have people of all walks of life and all abilities. I also found someone to ride through that group, actually, with on my tandem. That's a challenge, being a big guy like myself, finding that person who can give me a bit of time and is comfortable enough. And I ran into that guy, so we've been out doing that. And my Canadian Council of the Blind local chapter here, we've been going lawn bowling on Wednesday nights. Something else I'd never done. I've curled before with the London team and had to give that up due to scheduling and timing. But I enjoy doing this, lawn bowling. Of course, the first day I went there, I was great. The third, fourth, subsequent days, I probably should stay at home. So those are
So
some of the things I've been puttering
beginner's
around
luck,
with.
right?
Yes,
Beginner's luck.
that's what I told him. Or it's not thinking about it, not carrying. It's like, oh well, I'm a starter. It doesn't matter. Then when you start thinking, oh,
Mhm.
maybe if I did this, maybe, or he's saying turn this way, maybe, no, no, just don't think.
It's true. Now, this journey of yours has been incredible and a long one. But what have you really learned about yourself, Kelly, over the number of years?
When I started working, it was the first time I'd worked in an office at AMI. I had done some other jobs, as mentioned, little jobs and things like that, but I was there day in and day out working. And one of the things I was very aware is at, I guess I was about 31, 32 years old, I didn't know office politics. I didn't understand necessarily behavior. And I remember going to my manager and saying, I need indulgence in the sense of patience. If I'm doing something that you may say, why would somebody do that? Why would he say that? Why would he think that was okay? Stop me and tell me. Because please keep in mind, this is the first time I've ever worked in an office situation. As a person with a disability, a lot of us unfortunately are late to the party when it comes to the experience. So I learned that about myself. I also had the same manager when asking me to perform a task. I used to really, oh, well, maybe someone else should. I'm not sure if I have time. I'm not sure how quick. I don't know if I know it really well. Well, I can correct you if there's some mistake. Well, I may not get it. What if I need more time? Well, what do you mean? Well, you said if I could do this by Friday. I was very afraid to agree to things. Didn't want to let people down. Didn't want to commit because I didn't want that held against me. And when I asked my manager if I needed more time, what do I do? Well, try this. Ask for it. And if you can't get it done, you can't get it done. But I'd appreciate you trying and doing the best you can. But if not, you won't. I said, well, I just don't want to let anyone down. Well, just do your best with it. That's all we can ask of you. As well as the same manager said to me, and again, I think this stuff sticks with me because it was so early, um, toot your own horn.
Hmm.
Remind us, especially for your review and stuff like that, that you did do something, that you were aspiring to do that, or hey, take credit for it. Sure, you want to be humble, but if you're not going to toot your horn, no one else is. So
Absolutely.
I learned that, Melanie.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So, what comes next for Kelly Macdonald? You've accomplished all of your things that you were checking off that you always thought you wanted to do. So, is there something left that you're still chomping at the bit to get done?
I sort of think I want to get back into theater a
Mm.
little bit more. I want to try some more fitness things that I'm interested in, mainly because of as we get older, as I get rounder, I need to work harder at staying. I have a sedentary job and it's not good. But one of the things that I would love to do more of, and this is something I've always wanted to do, and when I was a kid, I knew people who were doing it, but it was kind of hard to get in the industry, voice work. I've had the opportunity of doing some audio description for film festivals, even for Netflix. I love doing silly voices, and now that the technology is more so, and I've had a couple opportunities, I lent my voice to a game project somebody was working on. Um, but now that I can, and I'm pretty efficient listening to my screen reader in my ear through JAWS, the program we use, and I can follow along enough and repeat stuff. I'd love to do voice work, whether it's for cartoons or situate myself as an audio describer where I have the opportunity to get enough gigs coming in. And when I do retire, maybe do a little writing, maybe do a little audio description, and be able to not just help myself financially augment my retirement, but really do some fun things with my voice while I have it.
There you go. I love it. Well, Kelly, now how can people get in touch with you to learn more about what you're up to, see some of your past work? Where can they find you?
Definitely go to ami.ca or subscribe to the Kelly and Rumya podcast. If you want to check out our show, like I mentioned, Breakthrough Entertainment has blindsided episodes posted that for seasons 2 and 3 that you can kind of go and audit yourself. If people just want a message, say hey or talk, or if they have a question, especially I'm always fascinated by people working in the industry or people wanting to get in there and those kinds of conversations. Kelly, Kelly dot Macdonald, Macdonald, at ami.ca. Feel free to drop me an email and just say hey or introduce yourself and that so they don't think that it's some kind of phishing email and send it off to wherever those phishing emails go. Other than that, really out here to say, move forward, folks. Do whatever it is you want to do. Have fun with it and give it a try and be persistent. And if it's something you want to do, just find the one of many different ways to get to be able to do it. And it may not work the first time, but keep at it. I'm a person who considers himself very lucky to have lived out my dreams.
Absolutely. And Kelly, thank you so much. I encourage everybody to definitely reach out, connect with Kelly. He is a great person, excellent friend I can say that for sure. I'm not saying you guys are looking for friends, but great resource and a great mentor. You can learn a lot from his lived experiences. And Kelly, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a privilege to actually sit down and have a conversation where I get to interview you instead of you interviewing me.
I'm trying to learn how to be a better interview guest so I don't go on and on and on and on. Oh yeah, ami.ca. See, I should be better for the website to go look stuff up. But if you want to find me on Twitter, at AMI Kelly Mac is another way too. But Melanie, I thank you for asking me to come on board. Everyone for indulging me and listening in, and hopefully finding some value in the words. And good luck, and so many great things you're doing that always keep me fascinated, and so much to tune in for.
And to my audience, thank you so much for clicking and tuning in for another segment here on Gaining Vision with Melanie Taddeo-Nxumalo. Do me a favor, if you haven't subscribed yet, take a second, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to like and share, and of course hit that notification button so you're notified every time I upload some new content. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.